os meus familiares, amigos e irmãos.
Que o que fizeram com o Lucas, queimaram, amordaçaram, amarraram, queimaram o Lucas vivo.
A vida dele era a igreja. A vida dele era Jesus, ele vivia 24 horas por dia.
Silvio Roberto Santos Galiza tinha 21 anos, era pastor auxiliar. Segundo testemunhas, Silvio já tinha sido transferido de outras igrejas por comportamento inadequado.
Lucas Terra, a devoted and upright youngster who loved serving God, had a beautiful future ahead of him and got that spark in his life that kept him going. Finding himself in a place he thought was safe but never knew was a lion's den, he served with all diligence and loyalty. However, a great tragedy struck, and what seemed to be a happily ever after turned into a dark sinister, one that changed everything he ever wished or dreamt of. Lucas Terra, who was the youngest of 3 brothers, was born in Salvador, Bahia, Brazil, on October 20th, 1986, to Jose and Marian Terra. And because he was so much interested in religious practice, he was always pleasant, courteous, and talkative from an early age. However, the family, who were residents of Rio de Janeiro, intended to leave Brazil gradually. While Lucas and Jose Terra remained in Rio de Janeiro, Marian and the other kids had already moved to Palmer, Italy. On January 5th, 2001, Lucas and his father planned to relocate to Europe, but in the meantime, they stayed at Jose's brother's house and remained there for 3 months to bid farewell to their friends and family before making the ultimate transfer to Europe. Now, being a devout man, Lucas looked for an evangelical church to join. He did, however, decide on the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God, which is about 100 meters from his lodging, and Silvio Roberto Santos Galiza was the pastor of the church. Many claim that Pastor Silvio, who was 21 years old at the time, became aware of Lucas's active participation in the church. He was quickly assigned by the pastor as his unofficial assistant, and whether on purpose or not, he gradually took on a controlling demeanor towards the young man. Witnesses reported that Pastor Silvio always seemed uneasy when Lucas came near the girls. Unknown to everyone, Pastor Silvio had already been moved from other churches because of his improper behavior. His actions had earned him the nickname the Devil's Secretary among the locals and the devout of the ancient temples. Interestingly, Lucas fell in love with a Christian girl in February. When they first started dating, she was 16 years old. The pastor, on the other hand, was unable to accept this and prohibited him from carrying on the relationship. Meanwhile, witnesses reported that the pastor disliked leaving the youngster with anyone alone and that he frequently cut off the boy's conversation with his girlfriend. Nevertheless, at the end of February, the pastor asked a few of the church's young members to stay overnight, but he only asked Lucas to share a room with him. When church members learned of his behavior, they transferred him right away, but this didn't stop him from going to the temple and attending services wherever Lucas was present. After one beautiful service on March 21st, 2001, Pastor Silvio overheard Lucas chatting with his fiancée and their friends. He immediately interrupted and urged Lucas to continue. Lucas, however, never wavered in his devotion to the Bible and religious precepts, always holding fast to the notions of good faith and moral behavior. The preacher managed to persuade Lucas to ride the bus with him to the Rio Vermelho neighborhood in some way. Apparently, when one of his friends noticed them heading in the other direction, she approached him and inquired as to their destination, and when Lucas failed to give a definite answer, Pastor Silvio stepped forward and shouted, "Come on, Lucas, we're going to be late." Lucas waited outside as Pastor Silvio made some purchases at a convenience store at a gas station. Meanwhile, Lucas decided to give his dad a call to let him know where he was and that he wouldn't be coming home that evening. He also, however, indicated that he was at the Rio Vermelho church with Pastor Silvio, that they were going to work on a prayer project, and that he planned to spend the night there since he believed it would be too late to get home. Now, what Lucas's father didn't know for sure was that a horrifying event was about to happen in his home which would change their lives forever. And we are going to find out exactly how the sinister turn happened. Lucas's father went to the church the next day, the 22nd of March, after realizing that his son had not come home. He wanted to know what had happened. Upon getting there, he was greeted by Pastor Silvio, who informed him that Lucas had told him he was heading to Pituba Church and that he had previously driven him to the bus stop. However, Jose Carlos went to the Pituba church and was told that Lucas was not there. This, however, got Lucas's father worried and confused, and so he reported the disappearance to the police right away. Where did Pastor Silvio take Lucas to, and what transpired between them? He was told at the police station that for it to be officially reported as a case of missing person, he had to wait a minimum of 24 hours. Dissatisfied with the reply, he made and distributed posters throughout the city that same day. Furthermore, he asked locals if they had seen the youngster while strolling the streets while holding a picture of him. When he visited the hospitals, nowhere had the name Lucas Terra been entered. Jose Carlos went back to the chapel on the 23rd to see if he could find anything more about his son or if any hints could lead him to his true destination. But Pastor Silvio did, however, say something contrary to his initial words this time. He said Lucas had gone home after he dropped him off at the Rio Vermelho Fruit and Vegetable Festival. This was indeed confusing to Jose, as this wasn't what Pastor Silvio had told him the first time. However, Jose immediately took this contradictory information to the police, and the pastor was summoned in to testify to what they have been told. When at the police station, he said that the last time he ever saw the youngster was when he dropped him off at the bus stop so he could go to another church before returning home. This information was obviously contradictory. However, Marian, Lucas's mother, was in Italy, and she wasn't aware of the issues at hand. She called Jose in Brazil to ask about her son, but he didn't want to bother her, so he gave her a reasonable excuse for the boy's absence. Jose was experiencing excruciating chest discomfort, but he didn't want his wife to worry about anything because she was essentially on the other side of the world. He was also having trouble sleeping, which would have given him enough energy to find his son. The youngster was reported missing until one fateful afternoon of March 23, 2001, when Lucas's father, Jose Carlos, received a call from a church member informing him that a burned body had been discovered in a crate in an empty lot on Avenida Vasco da Gama in Salvador, and that his presence would be crucial in identifying the corpse even though the police were already at the scene, as it was suspected that this body belonged to his son. Nevertheless, Jose Carlos went to the location, but as he drew nearer, his terror grew and he dared not to have a look at the body. Subsequently, when first viewing the body, one of the church members stated it was not Lucas. Meanwhile, Jose Carlos eventually told his wife that Lucas was missing after he could take no more of the agony and hopelessness. But being a mother, she immediately boarded the first flight to return to Brazil to aid in the search. Apparently, the body was taken by the police to the Legal Medical Institute for inspection, even though it was not believed to be Lucas's. In any case, the police discovered that the victim had shreds of cloth in his mouth, indicating that he had been gagged. But who did this body turn out to be? Jose was so anxious to find out who the body is, and he prayed that it shouldn't turn out to be his loving son. But the knowledge of this is about to shatter their hearts into pieces. Days later, the identity of this body was finally confirmed to be that of Lucas Terra. The scientific police who conducted the bioelectrical impedance analysis and the investigative department pooled their data to develop a theory regarding the boy's condition. Witnesses claimed that Lucas Terra was being driven to the empty lot in a combi by two persons on a motorbike after being beaten and having his mouth sucked dry. When the three reached the spot, they set fire to the box and ran away. The examination, nevertheless, revealed that Lucas was still alive when his body was charred. Who could have done this to the little boy, and for what reason? There were numerous suspicions that he was sexually molested, but it was impossible to determine the truth because of how badly burned the body was. The parents got the body after all the legal procedures were completed, still traumatized by the brutal facts of his death. Lucas was able to be buried in a Christian cemetery nearly 2 months after the crime. A funeral was done for Lucas and his loved ones. Relatives and friends attended the funeral. Lucas's picture was on several posters and banners that were still up throughout Salvador DEA, serving as a reminder of his father's hard work. However, Lucas was buried in the Bosa Diaz cemetery. They discovered throughout their investigations that the fabric that was used to bind Lucas, the same fabric that was put in his mouth to stop him from screaming, was comparable to the drapes at the Rio Vermelho Church Temple. Jose Carlos then started an unrelenting battle, requesting that the police take action, while asking the institution's religious officials for an explanation. Pastor Silvio felt humiliated while searching for answers multiple times. After the inquiry was finished in October 2001, Pastor Silvio Galisa was charged with killing Lucas Terra. However, no arrest warrant was issued for him, and a hearing was set for later that same month. When Pastor Silvio appeared on trial in early June 2004, 3 years after the incident, he displayed no signs of regret or fear. His speech was limited, and on the rare occasions that he was heard, all he said was, "I didn't kill Lucas Terra. If you think I killed him, prove it." He received a sentence of 23 years and 5 months in jail on June 9th. Pastor Silvio was granted the right to a fresh hearing set for November 2005, after the defense filed an appeal. His sentence was shortened to 19 years and 6 months because he was a first-time offender and had a stable job this time, despite not having a higher education certificate, which in Brazil entitles inmates to a special cell. The accused, however, was granted a television and high-quality food that was brought in from outside the prison. How can a murderer be treated with such a specialty? Silvio, nevertheless, refused to eat the meal served to him in jail, claiming that someone was trying to poison him. Silvio added fresh information to the case in January 2006, stating that he was being threatened with death and could not disclose all of the facts he knew at the time of the trial. As a result, he declared that only 3 other church members, a pastor, a bishop, and a security guard, were accountable for the crime. Silvio claims that Lucas went into a room designated as the pastoral office and saw Bishop Fernando Aparecido de Silva and Pastor Joel Miranda engage in sexual activity. They decided to murder Lucas to keep him from telling anyone what he saw. He claimed to have witnessed Lucas's body inside the pastor's vehicle, to have taken a hard blow to the chest, and have been threatened with death, both for himself and his family, if he did not keep quiet. The security guard assisted in carrying the Lucas's body. Because Pastor Silvio used the prison sentence reduction benefit through labor execution, his sentence was lowered once again in August 2007, this time to 15 years. In Brazil, offenders who fulfill certain requirements during their incarceration, such as maintaining good behavior, reading classic literature, working, studying, or donating organs, may receive a reduced term. Bishop Fernando was detained in 2008, and he was only imprisoned for a few months before being granted the opportunity to comment on the trial in freedom. Throughout the investigation, Pastor Joel remained unaccounted for, and no evidence that would have allowed for his arrest was discovered. Pastor Silvio was granted a semi-open regime in 2012, which allowed him to leave prison during the day, Monday through Friday. Joel and Fernando were found not guilty in November 2013 because there was insufficient evidence to support their conviction. Lucas Terra carried out his private research in 2014. He never considered giving up. In fact, during that year, he frequently traveled to Rio de Janeiro after leaving Salvador. Additionally, he refrained from speaking to anyone since he avoided hearing unfavorable remarks that would have sapped his motivation. When Lucas Terra visited his son's grave in December 2017, he recorded a message to Bishop Edier Macedo, the founder of the Universal Church, sharing some of his emotions.
Hoje é 25 de dezembro do ano de 2017.
He said in the video, "I want to ask Macedo a question. Why haven't you expelled these murderers from Universal to this day? I am here in the cemetery, where the remains of my son, Lucas Terra, who was murdered, tied, gagged, beaten, raped, and according to the technical and scientific police report here in Bahia de Salvador, he was burned while still alive. You give them your support, and based on their own admissions, they carry on with their religious activities, praying for the public, hosting radio and TV shows, and hiring scores of lawyers. The latest team that visited Salvador consisted of 12 attorneys. Why did you not expel these bishops? I only want justice. I don't want vengeance." However, Bishop Edier Macedo never addressed the video in public. When the Brazilian Supreme Federal Court arrived in November 2018, the procedure was revoked. Once more, the accusation was based on a dearth of evidence, and this choice further shocked the Terra family, Jose Carlos in particular, who had been dealing with depression and major health issues for some time. However, Carlos begged Marian, his wife, to get past the situation and attempt to live a peaceful life, to spare her from living out the rest of her days harboring resentment. Carlos felt in his heart that his life was coming to an end. On February 21, 2019, another tragedy struck in the house of Terra as he experienced a cardiorespiratory arrest and died. That was the worst thing that could ever happen to Marian, but nevertheless, she accepted her fate and granted her husband's request, but chose to press on since she believed the cause to be far more important. Joel Miranda and Fernando Aparecido da Silva stood trial before a popular jury. The Supreme Federal Court of Brazil ruled in September 2020. Marian found out on September 22, 2021, that 13 pages were missing when the case was submitted to the second jury court in Bahia on November 12, 2020, and that they had remained missing for more than 4 months. But why were the pages missing? Who must have hidden it? And what was so important in those pages? Could it be the truth about Lucas's murder? However, the missing pages were forwarded on March 25, 2021. She stated in an interview that her main worry is whether the things that have risen again are the same or if something has changed. Furthermore, 15 witnesses testified during the pastor hearing sessions, 10 testified on behalf of the defense, and 5 on behalf of the prosecution. Several of Lucas's friends were put to the testimony by prosecutors Ariomar Jose Fido D. Silva and David Gallo, who stated that Pastor Fernando had forbidden church workers from taking part in the hunt for the adolescent. They even said that Lucas's girlfriend had been threatened and kicked out of the temple before his death was officially confirmed. They also disclosed that a different pastor, Belger dos Santos, used a menacing tone to dissuade efforts to locate Lucas. Was it that the whole pastors were aware of the terrible conduct of one another in the church? Why were they covering up for each other, or are they all in this together? Prosecutor Davy Gallo stated that the case has been ready for 5 years and that at least 4 judges have determined enough evidence against the defendants to bring them before a popular jury in an interview with Rede Globo in Bahia. Furthermore, he expressed his inability to comprehend why this had not occurred earlier, considering that the legal process often takes 2 to 3 years when a member of a lower socioeconomic class commits the crime. The accused did not return to custody for over 2 decades. After completing a legal course while on parole, Pastor Silvio was allowed to resume his work as Salvador's pastor at Universal in Peri Peri. In addition, Pastor Joel Mirada serves as a clergyman at Rio de Janeiro's Ego de Coqueia Church. Bishop Fernando Aparecido da Silva, better known by his current moniker Fernando Silva, carries out his ecclesiastical duties as if nothing had occurred. It took some time for the trial to take place, but finally it did. The trial was held in April 2023, which was 22 years after the incident. The charges of triple homicide and concealing a corpse were brought against pastors Joel Miranda and Fernando Aparecido da Silva in court. Both received a 21-year prison term without the possibility of release. This demonstrates perfectly how delayed and riddled with loopholes Brazilian justice is. The 2001 crime trial proceedings were postponed for 22 years, and although there were updates issued about every 2 years, but nothing was changed. These cases are terrifying, sending shockwaves across the country, but bet you didn't know that Erin murdered her family. Want to know more about this case? Then check out this video, Terror by Night, Killed My Entire Family for My Boyfriend. And if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share, and comment down below. See you in our next video.